Welcome everybody to the Searching 101 workshop. This workshop will introduce you to basic search techniques for conducting research in the library's Roadrunner Search. So we will be using Roadrunner to demonstrate these search techniques, but let me remind you that these techniques should apply to most other databases as well. I do recommend following up this workshop with Searching 102. And if you need a more general explanation of the library and its resources, I definitely recommend the Library Orientation Workshop. Before we begin, let me point out the various ways that you can get in touch with the library staff. That's located here on the right-hand side of the screen. You can contact us through Ask a Librarian, which is highly recommended because that way we can provide you with example searches or add attachments if you need an attached document. You can email us, you can do a live chat, you can call us, you can text us, or you can set up an individual research consultation. Now these are most beneficial for doctoral students who have already done significant research on their own. But these are all the options for getting in contact with us. My name is Amanda Bezet, and I am one of the reference librarians here at the NCU Library. We do have a number of learning objectives today, and those are located in your workshop outline. If you don't have your workshop outline in front of you, that's certainly okay. Let me demonstrate how to access those workshop outlines. You're going to go to Research Help, Learn the Library. And then on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see the library workshop videos. If you were to click on that link, that would bring you to all of our workshop recordings. So just like before I mentioned following up with Searching 102, if you're unable to attend a live session, definitely feel free to come here and view a recorded session. Remember, if you need a general overview of the library, you might want to check out the Library Orientation Workshop. And if you do view one of these recorded sessions, you can certainly provide us with feedback on that recording using the Library Workshop Feedback Survey down here on the bottom left. We always welcome your feedback on our live and recorded sessions. If you're attending this live, you will receive an email tomorrow asking you to take this brief survey as well. So we are here looking at the recorded sessions, but I also wanted to point out the outlines on the left-hand side of the screen. So if you did need to access the Searching 101 workshop outline, you can do so right here. And on that workshop outline, we do have a number of learning objectives that we will be covering tonight. Upon completion of this workshop, you will know how to access the research process pages for preparing to search, access and use the library's Roadrunner Search, effectively conduct keyword and subject searches, select appropriate database search limiters, effectively conduct database searches involving Boolean operators, truncation, and phrases, search for a publication using the library's Find a Resource tool, and finally locate dissertations within the library. So let's go ahead and begin. I'm going to go to the Research Help drop-down menu and go to the research process. This provides a thorough overview of the research process, starting with finding your research topic and going down to producing scholarly research and everything in between in this research process. But what this workshop pertains to is the preparing to search section. So if you need a reminder of any of the techniques that are covered here in Searching 101, as well as those covered later in Searching 102, you can always return to these pages. So if you need a reminder about search limits, keyword searching, Boolean operators, etc. Each of these techniques has their own page. So now that we've seen that, let's go ahead and start doing a search using the library's Roadrunner Search. Roadrunner is a great starting point for your research because it searches most of the library's database content simultaneously, including articles, ebooks, and videos. I do want to point out, however, that some databases contain information that cannot be displayed in the Roadrunner Search interface. So Roadrunner results exclude databases with special content such as Merchant Online, Reference USA, as well as many academic videos and full-text dissertations. Therefore, we'll see how to access the dissertations later. But again, using Roadrunner is the best starting point for any research because it will retrieve the most results. And again, the search strategies that we're going to be using here in Roadrunner today will apply to other databases. So let's start out right here with a search for job satisfaction. So we will take a very broad topic and use all of our search strategies to narrow down our results. So I'm just going to go ahead and press submit. On our search results screen, before we start talking about our results and narrowing down our topic, I do want to point out the research starter at the top of the screen. Research starters are broad overviews of particular topics, and they are only accessible within the library's Roadrunner search results, meaning you can't access this content in any other databases or any other way. You will only see it if you have searched broadly for a topic within the Roadrunner search. So I'm going to click More, so we can take a look at that job satisfaction research starter. Research starters are, again, broad overviews, and they typically come from some sort of reference book. So typically something like a handbook or an encyclopedia. These broad overviews are something, though, that you can confidently cite in your academic research. This particular one is coming from the Salem Press Encyclopedia. This is an academic resource, so you can comfortably cite it in your research, versus something like Wikipedia, which you will not want to cite in your research. It's always okay to consult sources like Wikipedia, but you would not want to cite it. So let me go back to our results screen because I just wanted to point out that research starter. And now we need to start talking about our search limiters. Limiters are ways in which you may obviously limit your search according to set criteria so that your result set is more narrow. Now, you may have used limiters on your own in various databases. The most common ones are the full text limiter, the scholarly and peer-reviewed journal limiter, and the date limiter. So let's talk about these briefly. The full text limiter is a way to limit your search to content that is available in full text immediately. Now, if you are doing long-term research, such as that for a dissertation, we do not recommend putting on that full text limiter, because in doing so, you would eliminate any records to results that we don't have in full text. And you really want to open yourself up to as much research as is available on your topic. So putting on that full text limiter will definitely narrow that down. But keep in mind, if you find something that is not available in full text immediately, you can always request that through interlibrary loan. So we don't recommend the full text limiter for long-term research, but let's say, your assignment is due in a couple days, you may want to go ahead and put on that full text limiter. The next limiter down is the scholarly and peer-reviewed journal limiter. This is a great way to limit your search results to just scholarly journals. I do want to mention, though, that the EBSCOhost databases and the library's Roadrunner Search do not make a distinction between scholarly journals and scholarly peer-reviewed journals. So in our set of over 319,000 search results, most of them are probably peer-reviewed. However, not necessarily all of them will be. They will all definitely be scholarly, but peer-reviewed journals are a special subset of scholarly journals. Peer-reviewed journals undergo a peer review process where an author submits an article to the journal. The article goes before a board of peers that evaluates that content prior to publication. So keep that in mind, that they will all be scholarly, but they may not be peer-reviewed. The library does have a tool, and I will demonstrate where you can access that. The tool is called Ulrich's Web. If we go to the A to Z databases page, this contains all of the databases available within the NCU library. If we navigate to the letter U, we'll be able to see the Ulrich's Web database. This database is basically a serials directory, which means basically it's providing you all of the publication information about a journal, including whether or not it's peer-reviewed. So just as an example, if we wanted to determine if the Journal of Applied Psychology was peer-reviewed, we could go ahead and go into Ulrich's Web. We could paste in that journal title, press search, and then on our results screen, we will see this black and white striped referee shirt icon. This indicates that this journal is in fact refereed, which is the same thing as peer-reviewed. So this is a quick and easy way to check your references to determine if something is peer-reviewed. Now we do have a tutorial under the Research Help Learn the Library page under Quick Tutorial Videos, which demonstrates this process. So you can go to the Scholarly versus Peer-Reviewed Journals quick tutorial video, or you can go to the Ulrich's Web quick tutorial video, which is on the lower left. And either one of those will show you, again, how to use Ulrich's Web to determine if something is peer-reviewed. Okay, going back to our results screen, the last limiter that I wanted to discuss was the date limiter. And so often students will come to us and say, I only want research within the last 5 years. And certainly if your assignment specifies that, you must follow the instructions that your professor has laid out. However, if you're doing longer term research, like a dissertation, and you do need to do a literature review, we never recommend putting on this date limiter, because we don't want you to overlook any seminal research that may have come before that 5 years. So maybe 10 years ago there was a very pivotal study that is highly cited, has influenced many other researchers. That's something you wouldn't want to overlook. But certainly if your assignment calls for it, you could go ahead and put in that date limiter. Okay, so we've updated our results, and obviously we have a really large number because we searched for job satisfaction as a very broad topic. And not only that, we did not search for job satisfaction as a phrase. Phrase searching is probably my #1 go-to search technique. It's the quickest way to narrow down a particular search based on that term. Phrase searching uses quotation marks to find words in the exact order you type them in with no other words in between. In other words, this particular search that we've done for job satisfaction is searching for job anywhere and satisfaction anywhere. So not necessarily together. A lot of our results, we do see them together. However, as those results decrease in relevancy, we might see job on page 1 and satisfaction on page 20 of that article, meaning they're not relevant to our topic. So what we want to do is put quotation marks around our term, so we will be searching for it as an exact phrase. And watch the results, the number of results here, to see how dramatically they decrease when we apply this phrase searching. Phrase searching, by the way, works in most all library databases and also within Google and Google Scholar. So even if you're searching for a business or an event or a web page that you wanted to find in Google, you can always use quotation marks. So now we decreased it pretty significantly since we applied that phrase searching. Still, 77,000 results is way too large if job satisfaction was our topic. This would be an unrealistic number of results to sort through. So we want to start using other techniques to narrow that down. So the next thing we want to think about doing is using the Boolean operators. Boolean operators combine keywords in searches. So many of the library's databases, you'll see the Boolean operators on a drop-down list like you see here. And, or, and not are the Boolean operators. So depending on which one you've selected, it will either broaden or narrow your search. So let's go ahead and put in some additional keywords and combine them with these Boolean operators. By the way, if you go into a database and you don't see the Boolean operators, it's probably because you are on a basic search screen. So you can always look for an advanced search option, which we are now in order to see the multiple boxes with the Boolean operators. So let's say our topic was indeed job satisfaction, but we want to know how employee engagement relates to job satisfaction. So we could combine our terms with the and, which is the default here, and we're going to choose employee engagement. So let's go ahead and update our search. This should reduce our results again significantly since we are getting more narrow with our topic. So now we're down to just under 4,000 search results versus 77,000, which is what I believe we had before. Another operator that could be used is the not operator. I don't typically use the not operator, but there are some circumstances where you may want to use the not operator. In this case, let's say we are seeing results for a specific industry that we are not interested in. So in this case, I'm interested in job satisfaction and employee engagement, but I'm not interested in it as it relates to the healthcare industry. Maybe I'm only looking at other industries. So I can go ahead and put not healthcare in my search. So this will eliminate any article that mentions the word healthcare anywhere in the article. So just keep in mind that when using the not operator, it is possible that you will eliminate potential search results that are very relevant to your search. But let's go ahead and try this. Okay, so now we have limited our search to just 2,600 results when we eliminated those healthcare articles. So that is an example of how to use that not operator. I'm going to take out this last line so we can do an example of using the or operator. Let's say we're interested in job satisfaction and either employee engagement, or we've noticed in the literature we see the phrase work engagement. So if we type in or work engagement, I'm first showing you what not to do. Okay, I actually do not recommend using the or operator from the drop-down menu, and I'll show you why. So we're going to press search, and then I'll explain why this is going to give you irrelevant results. So we're up to over 12,000 search results. And basically what this particular search is doing is we're looking for job satisfaction and employee engagement together in the same article, or we're just looking for the term work engagement. So work engagement is no longer associated with job satisfaction. Those articles can talk about work engagement in any sort of context, which is why our results went up so much, and which is why you'll see results without any mention of job satisfaction. So sometimes students will use this or operator and not know why they're getting such irrelevant results. Other times it can lead to millions of search results and you're not quite sure why. So instead of using the or operator here, I'm going to show you how you could effectively use that. And that is by using a nested search. Nested searches we talk about more in Searching 102, but because I'm showing you what not to do here, I want to show you how to fix that. So a nested search will search for any of the phrases or keywords within your nested parentheses. So here I am looking for job satisfaction and either employee engagement or work engagement, but it still must have job satisfaction. So using this technique will make this go down from the 12,000 results to something that may be a little bit more manageable, especially once we start adding our additional limiters or terms. So you see how dramatically that went down as well. So we've covered how to use the limiters. We've covered how to use phrase searching, and right now we have 3 phrases included in our search. We've also talked about each of the Boolean operators. The next thing that I want to talk to you about is called truncation. Truncation lets you search for a word that could have multiple endings. A truncated word search will return a larger set of search results than a regular keyword search. I'm just going to type this in this third search box, but this is not going to be added to our search. I just want to give you a visual demonstration about what a truncated word would look like. And this is also included in your outline. If we were to search for the word music with the asterisk following wherever that word could possibly change, then we will bring back any variations of this. So this search would look for music, musical, musicality, musician, musicians, musicals. Okay? So again, obviously this does not apply to our search, but I just wanted to show you that on screen. So one way we could truncate our search is if we were to look for engage with the asterisk. This search would return engage, engages, engaged, engagement, engagements. Okay, so this would return a broader set than we're looking at now, I imagine quite significantly, since we're looking for any variation of engage anywhere in the article. So you don't always necessarily need to broaden your search, but think about the words that you're using in your searches and look to see if they could possibly be truncated, because this is much easier than trying all the different variations in separate searches. Now there is also a way to search for variations of a word that aren't on the end, and these are called wildcards. So I'm just going to return to the research process to quickly show you an example of a wildcard symbol. Okay, so the examples used here are applied to databases such as EBSCOhost and ProQuest. Basically, a wildcard is used to replace an unknown character. So an example here would be the word woman or women. Because the spelling is different, we wouldn't want to put the asterisk there because we wouldn't want to find any words that start with W-O-M that aren't related to women or a woman. So we would replace where the E or the A would go with the question mark. Now you can always consult each individual database to see if they offer the wildcard option. We do have links for EBSCOhost, Gale, and ProQuest wildcards and truncation symbols down here at the bottom. Okay, let's return to our search. Now we've gotten pretty broad with our search, but I do want to change gears here and start talking about subject searching, because subject searching can produce significantly different search results, because right now we're just looking for keywords, but subject searching can return results that you did not previously find by doing your keyword searching. And subject searching is actually a little bit tricky, so I'm going to try to break it down for you and make it a little bit more simple. Basically, there are several ways to conduct subject searches. So let's start with the first technique. You can click on an article of interest to you. Once that article detailed record screen appears, you can scroll down and take a look at the subjects, okay? And it doesn't matter if they have the asterisks in front of the subject terms, that just means they come from a different subject index. So these subject terms are hyperlinked within this record. So if I wanted to try a search for employee engagement just by the subject term, I could actually click on that and it will execute a whole new search for me. Once it has done that, you will see up at the top of the screen it says DE employee engagement. Sometimes when you click on a subject term, it will say SU employee engagement. Either way, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Just go ahead and let that be if this is the technique that you've used. Okay, so we've looked for employee engagement as a subject term, and we have 3,300 results. Of course, we could continue on adding additional keywords or using additional search techniques to narrow this down. But I just wanted to point out that first technique by actually going to a record of interest to you and clicking on a hyperlinked subject term. The next search technique that we can use is by using the SU subject term field code at the top of the screen. We talk about field codes a little bit more in Searching 102, but what I want to say about them at this time is that these can be a little bit tricky because if you're searching for a subject term using this field at the top of the screen, this basically relies on your already knowing or taking an educated guess that the database uses that particular term as a subject term. So it can be hit or miss when trying these subject terms at the top. So the best technique for you is to actually start scrolling through your results and looking at those subject terms. So here we see job satisfaction is a subject term, job involvement is a subject term, employee engagement is a subject term. So we're doing the best to educate ourselves as to what is used as a subject term within the database. You could even copy and paste those terms that you see. So if I wanted to copy job involvement as an example, I can go back up to the top of the screen, I'll clear everything out, I'll paste that back in, and I'll choose SU subject terms. I also know that employee satisfaction or job satisfaction is used as a subject term, so I'll go ahead and choose that as well. So this would be your second technique of searching by subject terms. Making sure that you know that these keywords or phrases are used as subject terms, pasting them into the search box or typing them into the search box, choosing SU subject terms from the drop-down, and then pressing search. So in that case, our results actually went up a little bit, I think. Another thing that we can do when it comes to subject searching is we can conduct our searches, either keyword or subject, and then on the left-hand side of the screen, we can scroll down to the subject area. This is going to display the top 6 subject terms that are assigned to your specific set of results. So in this case, our 3,900 set of results. And we can click Show More to see additional subject terms. At this point, we can pick and choose subject terms that are appropriate to our particular topic. So we know that job satisfaction is relevant, so we may want to keep that in there. But if we wanted to try to narrow things down a little bit further, we could try just choosing additional subject terms that might be relevant. So let's say we wanted to focus more on the job involvement and employee attitudes as an example, maybe organizational commitment, employee retention, and then we could update our search results once we're satisfied with the subjects that we've selected. So that did narrow down our results a little bit, and I want to point out that any of the subjects that you've selected appear on the left-hand side of the screen. So if we decided that we did not want one of those particular subjects anymore, we could X out of it, or we could clear all of our limiters. So we've talked about 3 different ways to conduct subject searches. The final technique that I want to demonstrate is by using a database thesaurus. So you've heard of a thesaurus as a way to find additional synonyms for words. Basically, that's what a database thesaurus does too, but then it allows you to apply those terms to your search. Now, because Roadrunner is not an individual database, it does not have a thesaurus. So I'm going to return to the library's homepage and go to the A to Z databases so we can go into ProQuest Central. You can access those popular databases on the right-hand side of the screen. So I'm going to scroll down to ProQuest Central. This is a large multidisciplinary database. However, it is searched from within Roadrunner as well. Okay, I'm going to click on our advanced search at the top of the screen, and then we will see the thesaurus right here above the search box. What I'm going to do is click on thesaurus, and then we can choose from the list. MESH means medical subject headings. Pilots I'm actually not familiar with, but the one that we want is ProQuest Thesaurus. So I'm going to click on that. And this allows us to search for the controlled vocabulary, the official subject terms used by the database, in this case by ProQuest. So what I'm going to do is type in employee engagement so we can see if that is in fact used as a subject term within ProQuest. And I'm going to click Find. And it says subject terms found, employee engagement. Oh, maybe I need to click on it first. Okay. Because it did not have a checkbox, so that meant it was not used as the main subject heading. So what it is using instead is employee involvement. And it does display narrow terms as well, employee empowerment and worker co-determination. But let's say I'm most interested in employee involvement. I can click on that checkbox and then I can click Add to Search. So what it has done is it has put the subject exact employee involvement, and then I can either continue finding terms from the thesaurus, I can add additional keywords, or if I'm satisfied, I can press Search to begin getting results for that particular subject. So if you see a thesaurus, either in ProQuest or another library database, that is how it will work. It's a way for you to look up to see what official vocabulary is used, the official search terms for your particular topic. Okay, I'm going to close out of ProQuest, and we are going to return to the Roadrunner Search quickly because I do want to talk briefly about the folders and the search history options. So our search history is included here under search history, obviously. Basically, it's kind of like a big drop-down menu. We can either view the search history or we can hide it again by pressing search history again. So during today's session, we've done 12 different searches. We'll see the search terms that we've used, any limits or expanders that we've applied. will appear under search options, the number of search results, etc. So we can always go back and view results from a previous search, or we can combine searches together if we wanted to add terms from different searches. Now, what I really want to emphasize about the search history is that it is only available for your current browsing session. So once I close out of Roadrunner Search, if I came back, this search history would be gone. Okay, the same thing with your folder, which is at the top of the screen. This is a temporary folder only for, again, your current session within Roadrunner. So if I found articles that I really liked, I could certainly gather them there. And if I go up to my folder, you will see those 4 articles that I just added. I can gather them there temporarily for saving or exporting into RefWorks. Maybe you're a RefWorks user and you want to get them into the RefWorks tool. That's my recommendation. But just keep that in mind that this is only temporary. However, you do have the ability to create a My EBSCOhost account. If you wanted to do that, you could save searches and save articles within that account. So I have an account here. I can show you what happens when I sign in. However, I have to tell you that I don't use this frequently. I do have 14 articles saved in my folder, and I do actually have 0 saved searches, but I do have 1 search alert. The reason why I don't use this frequently is because it's my preference to export any articles that I plan to use for my research into the library's RefWorks tool. If that's something that you're interested in doing, we do have a full-length RefWorks workshop, so I highly recommend checking that out. We also have brief tutorial videos on using this My EBSCOhost account, so let me point those out at this time in case you are interested in creating a My EBSCOhost account. So if we go to Learn the Library and then click on Quick Tutorial Videos, actually they're here under Research Skills. So we have creating journal alerts in EBSCOhost, creating search alerts in EBSCOhost. We also have My EBSCOhost account, which is a brief overview of creating and using that My EBSCOhost account. But I just wanted to caution you because some students don't realize that this is a temporary folder, that this is a temporary search history unless you create that account. But again, I don't use it often because instead of having an EBSCOhost account, a ProQuest account, a Sage account, a Gale account, for me it's easier just to pull everything into one resource, which is RefWorks. RefWorks, you can access the workshop on the library workshop videos page, and the one that you would want to look at is called Introduction to the New RefWorks Workshop. If you're new to RefWorks, that's the one that you'll want to access. There is also a legacy version, which is the old version of RefWorks, which they will be phasing out. So as a new user, just don't pay any mind to the legacy version. Okay, so now that we've discussed the folders and the search history, I do want to talk about searching for a particular publication within the NCU library. Because doing this search in Roadrunner is probably what you will be doing, 95% of the time. You want to retrieve articles from various different resources on your particular topic. However, there may be times when you want to find a specific journal, magazine, newspaper, newsletter, ebook, etc. And the way that you do that is by using the Find a Resource tool. Find a Resource is located centrally in the middle of the library's homepage next to the Roadrunner Search, or you can also get to it from the Research Resources drop-down menu. You can go to Find a Resource. This page is a little bit more expansive, but it does do the same function as this search box here. So just as an example, let's say we were interested in accessing the Journal of Organizational Behavior. We would not have any idea where to access it within the library unless we use this Find a Resource tool. I'm going to just type in Journal of Organizational Behavior and press search. Our results screen will tell us if we have access to that resource, and if so, in which years and in which database. It's also going to let us know if that particular journal is peer-reviewed. So in many cases, you can also use the Find a Resource tool to determine if something is peer-reviewed. However, that's not always the case. You see the next journal title down, it does not give any indication. So you'll always want to double check using the Ulrich's Web tool. So the Journal of Organizational Behavior is available in a number of databases, and you'll just want to take note of the date ranges. The biggest range is 1997 to present, and that's in Wiley-Blackwell Social Science and Humanities collection. So I'm going to click on that database, Wiley, in order to access the Journal of Organizational Behavior. So depending on the publisher of the database, each individual journal homepage is going to look different. However, in all cases, you should have a way to search within the journal and also browse by particular issues. On the left-hand side of the screen, we could click on All Issues to get all of the issues dating back to 1997 in full text. Or like I said, we could conduct a search here on the right-hand side. So if we were interested in employee engagement, maybe, we could type that in and press search. Okay, now we have 78 results for employee engagement within this specific journal. So this could be a good technique once you have settled on your topic. If you've identified a journal that has lots of articles on your topic, it may benefit you to also search within that journal, again, for that topic. It's a good way of finding similar results. Okay, so now that we've seen how to effectively conduct searches using the library's Roadrunner Search, we've seen how to look for a publication, a specific publication. Now let's talk about finding dissertations within the NCU library, because dissertations are going to be extremely helpful for you, especially if you are a doctoral student, because looking at other dissertations will help you to see other students' literature reviews, what research methodology they used, what test instruments they've used, and also to get additional research. So by looking at those references lists, that can really increase your references as well. So I'm going to go to the Research Resources drop-down menu and click on Dissertation Resources. From the Dissertation Resources page, I want to go to ProQuest Dissertations and Theses Global, because this actually has over 2.1 million dissertations in full text from all over the world. You do have the ability to limit this search to just NCU dissertations using the database above, but we're going to go into the global database. Okay, I'm going to click on the advanced search here. And then if we were going to stick with our original search topic, let's say I'm interested in employee engagement, and I'm also interested in job satisfaction. I'm looking for those as exact phrases, the search technique that we learned today, and I'm just going to go ahead and press search. Once we get our search results, we also have a way to limit these just to doctoral dissertations. Right now, our results include both doctoral and master's theses. But if we just wanted doctoral dissertations, we could go ahead and click on that. And then we have to press the search button. Okay, so now we have our almost 3,000 results For doctoral dissertations, if I wanted to, I could sort by the most recent first to see what the latest dissertation was, or I can just start scrolling down to see what dissertations look particularly appropriate for me. Once I see one, I can click on the title to get into the full text, or I prefer to click on the abstract and details just so I can find out a little bit more about that dissertation before looking at the full text. I also really love the References tab here because let's say you're just looking for additional sources on this topic. You don't even have to go into the student's dissertation. You can just click on the References tab and then you will see all of the references that that particular student used. Within that References tab, if we have access to the full text, you will see the full text access there, or you may see the article linker. The article linker will check the rest of the library to see if that article is available. So let's give that a try. You'll also see the article linker within the Roadrunner search results, which was something that we didn't actually talk about. If you do see that article linker, you'll get one of two options. It will link out to the full text article, as we did in this case, or if you do not link out to the full text, within a Roadrunner search or within another library database, please keep in mind that you can always request that material through interlibrary loan. And we also have a full-length interlibrary loan and alternatives workshop if you are interested in that. Okay, so we've seen how to search using the library's Roadrunner search. We've seen how to locate dissertations. We've seen how to locate a particular publication. And we talked briefly about your folders and your search history in Roadrunner. That basically concludes our workshop today. There are a couple of additional resources that were mentioned during the presentation in your workshop outline. So you can always access them there, but I do highly recommend going to the Learn the Library page in order to access all of the workshop recordings and quick tutorial videos. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to stay on the call and chat with you. I can certainly unmute you if you would like to ask any questions on microphone. If you don't have any questions, definitely feel free to take off for the night. I'm so happy that you could join me today, and I definitely hope to see you in future workshops.